Hello guys, I'm Alistair and welcome to By the Way Inglés. In today's video, we're going to be looking at 3 anglicisms found in Spanish and the stories behind them. And this is going to be part of an ongoing series which explores the interesting linguistic links between Spanish and English. So, before we start with the anglicisms themselves, it's definitely worth looking at the word anglicism. To a Spanish speaker, its meaning probably seems quite obvious. Any English term or word found in a language other than English, such as Spanish. However, in English, we much more easily understand the term loanword. So, for example, there are Spanish loanwords like mosquito and cockroach, Dutch loanwords like coleslaw and cookie, and French loanwords like 30% of the lexicon. The reason why I'm using the word anglicism in this video is because it's much more easily understood by Spanish speakers. Okay, without further ado, let's dive into it. So the first one on the list is smoking or smoking, which in English is known as a dinner jacket or tuxedo. This means that it falls into the category of a pseudo-anglicism, which means it is a term that has the appearance of an English word but is not actually used in English itself. But unlike other pseudo-anglicisms, which have no resemblance to the English equivalent, such as autostop and footing, which were both made up by the French, this word does actually have a history in English. Smoking started its life off as smoking jacket, but as mentioned, a smoking jacket is not an smoking. It was a jacket which was designed for British upper-class men to put on over their normal suit to protect it from the smell of smoke and ash when they went to the smoking room. The historical backdrop to this was that the smoking jacket came into fashion in the 1850s, at one of those rare moments in history when the English and French were actually getting along, fighting the Russians in Crimea. And thus, a great number of upper-class English and French generals were spending lots of time together, plotting how best to waste money and lives in a place that no one had ever heard of. Anyway, the French seemed to have loved the idea of being able to smoke whilst looking fabulous, but didn't quite fancy the linguistic baggage of an adjective and a noun, and so shortened smoking jacket to just smoking, and spread this new fashion and word far and wide. A decade later, the short design of the smoking jacket was married with the refinements of the tailcoat to create a more informal and comfortable garment to wear at dinner, giving us the dinner jacket. This design was then exported to the United States, where it became known as a tuxedo, as it was first worn at the elite New York country house of Tuxedo Park in 1886. Then, as a result of the Roaring Twenties, it became a symbol of style and sophistication the world over. But the French had already told everybody that a jacket without a tail was a smoking, and so the name stuck. But yeah, if you want to do some high-class pimping, go ahead and get yourself a smoking jacket. But if you're going to a wedding or any other formal event, opt for the dinner jacket. Now, next on the list is one I find so cute. It's penguin, which doesn't even sound like an English word, but that's because it isn't exactly. Because supposedly, and I say supposedly as there isn't 100% etymological agreement on this word, it's from the Welsh penguin, meaning whitehead. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Not so many penguins to be found in Wales. However, until around 1850, when it was eventually hunted to extinction, there existed a large flightless bird that lived in the North Atlantic called the great auk, which was also known as a penguin. This word was first found in English dictionaries in the late 1500s, at a time when Europeans, many of whom were Welsh, had recently begun exploring the northeast of the American continent, where the great auk was particularly prevalent. Penguin later appeared in Dutch as pinguin, and then after in French as pingouin. It's a good thing I'm not a French teacher. And then, once again, the French spread the word to other languages, including Spanish. Once in the southern Atlantic, the Europeans, minus the French interestingly, used the same word for these guys owing to their physical similarities to the original penguin. Okay, and finally, what is the relation between coaching and coche? Despite their current significantly different meanings, they do in fact share the same linguistic origin in the Hungarian town of Kocs. The story starts in the late 1400s in this small town that was strategically placed between Vienna and Budapest. It started as a repair station for carriages and wagons travelling between the two cities, but gradually began to innovate and create a lighter, quicker and more comfortable carriage. Its design was such a success that it began to be demanded in many other parts of Europe. In Hungarian, it was known as the Kocsi Szekér, meaning the wagon of Kocs. This name then passed to German as Kocze, losing its noun, and then to the French, who once again passed it on to English, where it became coach, and Spanish, where it became coche. Then, in 1830, in Oxford, the word coach began to be used as an informal term for a tutor, where the metaphor was that it was the tutor that carried you through to your academic destination. This analogy was then carried on to many other fields, including sports, and was eventually incorporated as a subfield of psychology in the 90s. And from there, it became a worldwide phenomenon. Nowadays, a coach with wheels still refers to the inner city transport in Britain, and also refers to the vagones of trains. So, for example, most long-distance trains have a quiet coach, not a silent coach. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I suppose thank you France for giving me the material for this video. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. That's been my By the Way for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.